Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Welcome to Big Blend Radio with Nancy and Lisa, the crazy mother-daughter travel team and publishers of Big Blend Radio and TV Magazine and Parks and Travel Magazine. And on today's show, Nathan Ripley is joining us to discuss his haunting new thriller, Find You in the Dark. And it goes into some crazy obsessions that really goes around digging up bodies, which
it's crazy.
That's already when you think about digging up a body, when we, as teenagers, we used to hang out in cemeteries and stuff. It'd be fun.
That was to drink.
No, but it was like, then you think about, digging up a body, and then it was like, oh, would you ever do that? But his character apparently has a thing about it, and he thinks he's doing the right thing, but then it's like, I don't want to give it away because, Nancy, you read this.
I know, and I'm going to be real careful about not giving away.
You cannot spill the beans as much as you have with me. You cannot. But everyone, it is out now, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all those great places, and go to naben-ruthnum.com. And welcome to the show, Nathan. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we're excited about this because it's a crazy story. Can I just say it's crazy? Like, really.
What made you
Nancy would come out at wine time and go, okay, so here's the wine time report. It twisted this way. Just when I thought it was this, there's a lot of twists and turns in this, and this guy's digging up bodies. Like, where did the digging up bodies thing come from? Like, where did this start for you?
Well, yeah, the concept came to me just I've always been a reader of true crime, and a lot of true crimes have happened in the Pacific Northwest, which is where my book is set. And you guys live in the desert, so you know well that a lot of times when there's a stretch of territory that doesn't get much human traffic, it ends up becoming sort of a burial ground for bodies. And there are a lot of undiscovered victims of serial killers in the Pacific Northwest in forested areas. Just the victims who will never be found because their killers are now, safely jailed or executed. So the investigation has stopped. So those families never get the closure of getting their loved ones back. So I thought, like, well, what if I had a main character who kind of dedicated himself to finding these undiscovered bodies? And then I went a step beyond that and said, well, if somebody was doing this work anonymously, they'd probably be a pretty weird person. And instead of just being a normal true crime reader, they're a bit obsessed with murder. So that's our guy.
And his name is Martin Reese. He's very la-di-da. Like, that name is like, this is somebody that you could know in your own community, right?
Yeah. He's definitely he's got more money than us. Actually, I don't know how much money you guys have, but he certainly has more money than me. He's a retired .com guy, but still in his early 40s. But yes, he is a family man. Loves his wife. Is very devoted to his daughter. They have a very normal, healthy home life. This is someone who could live on your street, which I thought was an important part of a story like this. When you're talking about somebody who does such weird stuff, there has to be an anchor. Like, you have to still see this person as a human being and relatable. So his family was my way of doing that.
Well, it worked because I was like, oh no, they're living with a serial killer. Oh no, they're not. Oh yes, they are. Oh no, they're not. No,
yes,
you did a really good job on that, because I was like, getting to the end, I'm like, is he or is he not? Come on.
Yeah.
What's
that
up?
That push-pull.
Go ahead.
That push-pull was really important to me. Like, I really wanted you to, even if his actions are clean, I want you to always be wondering about his motivation. Like, what kind of person is this? Even if what he's doing seems to be helpful to the people around him, is he doing it for the right reasons, or is he a real sicko?
That's what I kept thinking. Okay, but then. So I love that you keep guessing, which is a real page turner. I have to give it to you on that strategy. It worked perfectly.
Oh, thanks so much.
I'm still kind of. Are you sure?
I know. So all I could say at the end of Nancy telling me everything, like every other,
I didn't tell you
wine night, and we do have wine time every evening, and she comes out and she's like, no. And then, I thought this was going to happen. Now it's not. But she's into the character. Like, I like this dude, but then, like, this is kind of creepy weird. but then I kind of like him. And then I'm like, this smells like, and to bring up smells when you talk about digging up bodies, this smells like Netflix to me. Would you ever see this as a Netflix series? Because it awesome. Sounds like this. When someone's digging up bodies as their hobby, you know, come on, actually, the .com era needs this.
The TV option has sold to E1 up here, so we're actually putting together a way to pitch it as a TV show. And yeah, and I do want to, even if it's not on Netflix, I want it to be very Netflix style. You know, watch it sort of chapter after chapter. Because as you said, like I was really going for the kind of page turner that you're talking about. Some page turners are plot page turners. You want to know like what event happens next. But the kind that I like the most they're page turners because you're so curious about the people. You need to know more about this person. And I think that works well on TV.
You did it. I think that's the thing. It's about getting hooked into the character. And I think so many times we have books or, you know, movies and stuff that's just so bam, bam, boom, bang, whatever, colors, lights, action, that the character, like England does really good on character. Like England, Nancy and I watch a lot of British comedy and things like that because the character is center stage. And it's like, that's who you're watching. And it's like, okay, how are they going to handle this now? You know? And I think that's the same thing with crime fiction, is that you want to get into that person's mind. If the character's not there, you're lost. You are reading it for the character more than what they did, actually, in a weird way.
I completely agree. Like, I think in an odd way, like, even though I love plot and story, I feel like some crime, like the kind of psychological crime books that I like to read and write, I almost feel like you could pluck those characters out and put them in like just a really realist non-crime situation and still tell a pretty interesting story about them. I think that's kind of one of the tests of my characters.
I think that the thing about being a character is how to make your characters different, but still within the realm of a character people would accept.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I mean, okay, it's not an alien who just dropped to Earth. It's a character that people will talk to, relate with, and maybe walk away shaking their heads like, there's something about that person I just don't get. Or they like, oh man, that's a nice person, but they're not walking away going, I'm never talking to that dude again. You know,
I think that you've really put that's kind of how a book like this lives or dies. Whether you can toe that line with your character, especially when he's a bit of a weirdo. Because I mean, you're not making friends with Martin, but you have to at least be interested enough in him to pick that book up again after you put it down. So that's the test of it.
Well, and his love for his family keeps it going, like it does. It's like it keeps you going. And I am so interested in the psyche of serial killers that, I mean, I find that this is such a weird thing. I don't know if you believe serial killers are just born that way, or somehow through their family development they come out that way. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean that's like the age-old nature nurture thing. I think it has a lot to do with how you grow up and what happens to you. But I think there are also decisions along the way. This cartoonist named Durf, he wrote this great comic called My Friend Dahmer, because he actually went to high school with Jeffrey Dahmer, which is crazy. Like Dahmer was like the weird guy in their friend group who was really, really weird, and they kept him around for entertainment more or less. But looking back on like what that guy ended up doing, Jeffrey Dahmer, Durf says like there just comes a moment where he made this decision where his own desires were more important than somebody else's life, and I think that's a decision that those people all face. I don't really necessarily believe in like this pure uncontrollable evil. So I think Martin Rees comes up against a choice like that a few times in his life and always, or almost always at least, chooses the right path. But something I really wanted to put across about serial killers in this book is that I think a lot of them, as fascinating as they are, sort of in the abstract, a lot of them are actually just, they're not these criminal mastermind, Hannibal Lecter, super fascinating people when it comes down to it. They're just gross little men with gross little desires. And I think I was trying to get at that with the killers you actually sort of meet throughout the book.
Right. And you do meet those people in life all the time. We had a band back in the days when we lived in San Diego years ago. We had a band, a rockin' band, and it was like blues and rock, and it was like a 4-piece band that could go to a 12-piece band at any call. And our rhythm guitarist turned out to be a rapist, and we didn't know this.
Oh my God. Oh my
I know.
God.
And our drummer was like this other, like, crackhead, but we didn't know. We just got back to this country from living in South Africa, and we had no idea about half of the stuff that was going on here. And like, for me, very naive at that time.
It was a time war.
Very like, early 20s, Anyway, so
Sure.
we get there, we're doing this band thing. The first gig we do, believe it or not, is over the border in Mexico, in Ensenada, this yacht club, which is a bunch of, basically a bunch of drug people, expats hanging out there, and we went and played for them. And on the way back over, we had to go over the border, and then our drummer gets arrested because apparently he was, I don't know what he did, but he got arrested. But our guitarist, our rhythm guitarist, which we called Weenie, believe it or not, joke. I mean, it's a real story.
Yeah.
And he was always just, we called him that because he acted like, a typical, like a slutty guy. And he was always after women and carrying on, but we never thought of that. And we always thought there was something odd with, him. And later we found out, I mean, as a band, we traveled, we ended up staying in hotel rooms together. I mean, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. He turned out, and we knew that he had a criminal record, but we thought it was because he was hooked on heroin at some point and all this stuff happened. Someone stole his heroin. He went after them with a gun, and he got put in prison. Well, later the internet comes out, so it brings back to your .com. We find out, like, this family watchdog site comes up, and we were doing a story, and we're like, well, let's put his name in. And bingo, he appears as like a 2-time rapist battery dude that's been like in trouble for years. And we're
my
like,
God.
Gross. We know him like intimately as friends, family, like, seriously, are you kidding? And then he would come over to our house and we would pretend we're not there. Like, we would hide, because like we knew. And then what do you do? And this is someone you have known for years, toured with, like what? But that's how close it can be when that's exactly it.
What a shock that must have been.
But then it was crazy.
But your character, I mean, when people know someone and they really think they know them, that I just want to put it out there that maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know that you ever really know everything about a person or what they might do under given circumstances. Like Martin Reese seems like a pretty level-headed, great guy. You know how to make some money. And then suddenly he's like digging up bodies, and he's kind of getting excited about it. Mm-hmm. And you're in two minds as you're reading. You're like, okay, he's doing it for the good of the families, but then you're going, maybe there's an edge.
And even his own wife doesn't really know him. And I tried to put in the book that it was, she really purposely looks away from some things about her husband, because she's not a stupid woman at all.
But that's exactly what I was trying to say, how he disconnects with our guitar player, Johnny. That weird, crazy where you know him, and then you kind of just go, oh, he just does that.
That women, we've been brought up to do that. We always do that.
Close that eye.
Yeah.
One eye open, one eye closed.
And when it comes to like someone you have what you think is a stable life with together, when those questions come up in your mind, you have to wonder, like, if I ask this question, is it going to change everything that I like about my life, as well as everything that I'm afraid of? Yeah.
Yeah, because the person in the family circle, whether it's friends or family, now it's like, this is a big change. Now it's going to be like, I'm doing the big overhaul. Am I right? Am I wrong? It's like, and then there's family involved. There's kids, and like this is crazy. So I want to go back. So this guy gets off on going out on camping trips and digging up bodies that he gets from a cop's file. Like he goes.
Yeah, he does very careful research in police files, and sort of he looks for clues that the cops might have missed after they stopped investigating, and he tries to find these bodies. So yes.
Wow.
But it sounds like that's a good deed, but the other side of your mind goes, why would anybody do that?
Yeah.
So.
And also, why would they do it secretly? Like, why would he calls it in anonymously? Yeah.
Yeah, and I know I like that part in the book, and I don't want to give stuff away, but I found it fascinating. Like, what made you think of this? What went through your mind where you were like, "Ooh, let's do this"?
Yeah. What?
Do
you have a relative like that or something?
No, not at all. I have
a rapist guitar player? No, I'm kidding.
No, not at all. I have a very mentally healthy family. Thank God. But no, it was just the idea that once I had the idea, like, these undiscovered victims are out there. They really are. Like, that's not made up. So and right behind that was the idea of like, well, someone who is fascinated enough, like more interested than me, who would actually look for them, there'd be something wrong with them. And that's where I sort of had the idea of, I find a lot of serial killer novels like not that great, like, because they do have those sort of evil genius serial killers, a lot of them. Some of them are amazing, of course, but I wanted like a different angle on it. So I wanted a guy who had a lot of the mental equipment of a serial killer, but who didn't do that, who'd chosen like very purposefully to have a certain other kind of life, but whose fascination with murder and like with that kind of control you get as a murderer, he sort of transports that over to his hunts, to his finding of these victims.
Couldn't you kind of? Oh, I'm going to get in trouble for this one, but I'm going to say, could you?
Oh, great.
No, just the idea of being a policeman. Is there that weird edge? Do you think? Like, especially if you're going to be in a homicide division, is there that weird edge?
That's interesting. I mean, I think there's a way you can do that, and I think most homicide cops are actually very normal people who are very committed to criminal justice. And I think my brother-in-law is a social worker, and I think they have a lot of the same mental equipment as cops. Like social workers have to continually see these awful situations that the children are in, that and then they also have to be able to joke about it, at least to themselves, and kind of distance themselves from the situation. And I feel like a lot of homicide cops have that kind of sense of humor and that ability to sort of separate that darkness from their own lives. I think Martin Rees and probably certain other cops, they don't joke about it, and in fact they're fascinated and drawn to it. There's an investigating cop in my book, Sandra Whittle, who she also is kind of close to Martin in terms of being a real obsessive, which is another common cop trait, I think. She gets obsessed with murderers, but she's also she hates men who take advantage of women. That's her overmastering hatred, and that has a lot to do with how she grew up. So that prevents her from being like an exploitative person who's interested in death for death's sake. She's just too fixated on putting these guys away.
This is interesting, the parallel lines that you're drawing with this. Like, but then they're like there's no real line, right? There's like this blur. And that's, I think, what's so interesting about crime fiction is that there's, because there's good cops, there's bad cops, there's, criminals that you love, and even like, we talked about our guitar player. Now we're laughing, and it's not funny what he did, and it's not funny, but it is. But for us, like, we had to like kind of laugh, because
I mean, that situation is so scary. It's so absurd, and it's also just so terrifying. You had this person you trusted that you slept nearby, like it's really scary.
You're sharing songs, we're doing the whole thing, and you see things, you go, oh, that's just how that person is, and not go take that extra step. Because I also think our society now we've also become so politically correct in things, which politically correct is good in some ways, but if it's not truly meaningful, then what are you doing? You know what I mean? There's this line, and I think that's what happens in crime too, is that people don't want to be seen calling somebody out. You don't want to be seen saying, that's wrong. Now, we did call, Nancy and I, the guitarist actually had a hard time with Nancy and I. He big time, because especially Nancy went off on him. There's like, you can't be treating women this way. Like, you can't be talking to them off on the stage. He tried to bring girls up with bikinis on shows and stuff like that. And we knew, like, that's crazy. So the same thing with Martin Reese, your main character here. It's like, there's signs, but people don't really want to do that acting. Like, they don't want to take that stand, because what if I'm wrong? It's like, it tests the other people's character on what are they going to do about it. And if you smell a rat, do you say, are you in school? We were always told, like, don't be the mouse, don't tell on somebody. And hello, that's how crimes happen.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's and especially when it's someone you're intimate with. I mean, not to say that Martin actually does. I was really careful to make sure that Martin doesn't do anything gross in the book, like anything that would really lose the reader from kind of at least following to the end of this story. But there's certainly warning signs that he's a person that, I mean, his wife's sister was a victim of a serial killer long ago, before the novel starts, and this is something that's foremost in her mind. So the idea that her husband is fascinated with serial murder would be the worst thing for her, like, so off-putting, especially if she asked more questions and found out more about him and what he was doing. And I think a lot of the reasons why people don't ask those questions is not just to avoid the uncomfortable scene, but because they're just not ready for what those answers are going to do to their lives.
Exactly, because somebody gives the answer that you don't want to hear. Now, you've already said, like, in your mind, if that answer pops up, you're going to have to make a change. And people hate to change anything, without knowing that the change they're going to make is being for the better. Because that's jumping off a cliff with no net below. You don't know.
Yeah.
So,
and I think those are a couple of the really important, like, sort of hidden themes of the book are control and stability. Like, Martin needs to be in control on his digs. When he eventually comes up against the killer, like the big villain of this book, that person is a hyper organized and controlling person. And murder, dominance, is so much about control. And I wanted to kind of parallel that sort of sicko, psychotic type of control with the kind of control that we need to feel we have over our own lives, over our own families, and just to, again, like, push that line of, like, how much of this is normal and how much of it is weird.
Yeah. When does the line get crossed?
That's
like
it.
You creeped me out. You really did.
Thank you.
Like, okay, no, you did, and I love that, because I'm like, I totally see this as a movie, if not a TV series, but I see this as a really good movie. And I was thinking.
I want to hear the book club discussion on this.
No, because I was thinking, who could play Martin Reese, and my choice would be Jack Nicholson.
I think Jack starts off too. He comes with too much baggage of having played a crazy biker or the Shine.
Young, when he was young, before he is who he is today, but he's got that kind of, I'm a happy-go-lucky, not really kind of dude.
You know who I think could actually work? Again, he's too old now. All my references are out of date because I haven't kept up. But I think John Cusack in, like, the 90s would be kind of ideal for. That's who I see this guy.
Yeah, because he's got the same look.
Yeah, it's the same look. Yeah, it's the same look. And, well, Joan Cusack, like, if you had Martin Reese as a woman, and she was Marta, she would do it, because you never know if she's got flowers or a chef's knife in her hand. It's one of the two. She's always like that weird, like, you never know which way that could go. She's like, Kathy Bates. You never know, like, Misery.
But Mary Lou Henner with Here's Mommy. That would be good. Female.
Wow. We went female on you. But yeah, John Cusack, because he had this sweet face, but you never knew, like, Harvey Keitel, but then that's too obvious, and now we can't. He's
now
trash.
We have to get younger.
He's been trashed out of the Hollywood books now with,
all that
Weinsteins and all those
But we
people.
have to get younger. Who, like, somebody in their...
Ryan Reynolds would mess with people's heads. That would mess with people. But he's
almost too outgoing and charming, though. He's just not quite weird enough. He's from Vancouver though. He's a Pacific Northwest guy, so he'd know the territory.
Cumberbatch, because he's weird looking. He could go either way.
Oh, you know?
He's not weird looking.
No,
Nice. That sounds bad. But like he's got that.
You know who could do it? Kiefer Sutherland.
Oh yeah,
cool.
That's right.
No,
he's a little too old too now, but he's got the right
Don't
look.
Say that.
Definitely.
I like still have a crush on him.
No,
I mean, he's too old for the role.
So nice.
There's a guy
nice.
that's younger than him. He'd like have a Paul Rudd kind of dude. Jason, what's it now? Now I can't remember. Yeah. Anyway, obviously we're getting too old here. I don't know.
I mean, I know what you mean. I can't. Anytime I'm asked about casting stuff like that, I'm just on IMDb being like, who's an actor who's under 30?
Yeah.
And,
you know what it is?
It's
like back in the day, there were these amazing. Like I would like to see. Quentin Tarantino take this off. Like, would you allow him to mess with your script, like, and say this? Okay, we're going to take this and make it. The
way I think about adaptation is like my book is done. It'll always be what it is. If a really creative, inventive director or writer was like, I really want to take the core of this and change a lot about it, I'd say, oh, please go ahead. I mean, I'm interested in what you come up with. I think
a great person to mess with stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he's making a Charles Manson movie right now, actually. So
that's crazy.
That's crazy. I mean,
but he's the perfect person. No one else can do it.
You know, I'm really glad they waited for that person to leave our planet
before they made a movie.
Before they make him into an icon.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much.
I agree.
I want to. That touches on something.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say that touches on something that was really important to me in the book too. I don't use any real serial killers' names, or like I brought up Jeffrey Dahmer in this conversation, but there are definitely like parallels between what happens in my book and some real killers from the Pacific Northwest. Mm-hmm. But I think it's so important not to like continue to contribute to glorifying these guys who are just loser murderers. So yeah.
I think they do, like, oh, my name's in this, woohoo.
No.
And I think that's one of the things that people have to be aware of, not just in this kind of scenario, but also in politics, is just to, like, don't.
Oh, it's all the same.
No, because it's the same. Oh, I'm going to say.
Did you go into the P word, politics?
No, I'm going to say it's the same mental defect.
Yeah.
Of me first, everybody else later.
And the people on the other side are like, oh, I don't want to speak up, So there's that balance. And that's what I think is so good about crime fiction. And in your story, I can't wait to read it, but I have to like chill it out of my brain because Nancy, like, wine time talk. And by the way, on our morning walk, we walk by, like they're doing this development place, and she'd go, a body could be buried right there. I know. And there's caution tape. She's like, there. No, anyway. So she's like, look.
I actually took some caution tape.
You don't tell people on the radio shows. Don't talk about thievery.
Well,
it was trash. It was trash on the road, and we did have to take it because they trash it.
We clean up as we walk.
Yeah, but this is so interesting to me.
But I still have it.
Is that crime fiction? It's the same thing as political thrillers. It goes into, are people going to stand up or not? What are people capable of doing? How far are we ready to go on the right or the wrong side, the middle line? How long can we walk that tightrope? And I think it's a valuable thing for us. I think through, books like this, entertainment, that it's entertaining, but it makes us think. And I think we need to think beyond our phones. And I think that's this amazing thing about crime fiction. I think it's a necessary thing that people read it, watch it, and think about what they would
have those conversations with themselves. You're right.
Yeah.
Because you bring out the other side that we all hope doesn't exist, but apparently we have a lot of prisons with people in them, so apparently it does. So
I mean, there were probably a few too many people in those prisons.
Exactly, because we have corporate prisons that just want to put people in for smoking weed versus.
But now we're getting into that political thing again. I think we agree on this.
But there is obviously an edge to the persona of a human, which makes them like, are you still human or did you cross the line to be an animal? Although animals don't really do serial killing, actually. That's a human
They do
trait.
serial eating.
No, but they don't serial kill. They don't.
Not for the
murder for pleasure is not a big animal kingdom thing.
So what got you into saying, I'm going to write crime fiction? I'm going to write this story. Like before the actual or did the story come before, like, I'm going to do this? Like, did you think I'm always going to write a novel of crime fiction and get into that genre? Because I know you've written another book which we can talk about too.
That's a good question. I mean, I always, for as long as I thought I was going to be a writer, I thought I'd write a bunch of different stuff, but it didn't occur to me that I'd certainly not that my first major novel would be a crime fiction novel. But I read so many of them, so it was kind of inevitable. And it was the idea though first. Like the idea came to me first, and then I realized, well, this is a crime fiction novel idea, so I guess I'm writing it. And that's kind of the way I all my writing works. Like if I have an idea for sort of like a ghost story, I end up writing a horror story. If I have an idea for just a realist New Yorker type short fiction story, I write that. It's very freeing. It's nice. That's what helps have a couple names.
I know you have a couple names. I want to get into that, but I also want to touch on the fact that you're in Toronto, and that's a good, from what I know from my friend Brendan Matthews, that's a good filming location. So that's good. Since, we know this is now going to get somewhere on screen. So everybody find you in the dark. Not only get the book, but wait for it. It's going to come out too somewhere. But you traveled to Seattle in the Pacific Northwest, which there's some creepiness there. I mean, I go back to Twin Peaks days and stuff like that. There's body parts around that place, and they hang out amongst the ferns.
I grew up in British Columbia and
spent
a lot of time in Vancouver, so I know both the familiar, homey part of that part of the world, and just how isolated and weird it can be when you're in the woods.
This is true.
So that's what I was like. Does that kind of draw? Does that when you look at writing, and obviously you've been writing all kinds of things, throughout your life, where does the inspiration come? It's just like, hey, I've got this idea, I'm going to write it down. Is it the place? Like, hey, I'm in this place and this is kind of creepy. Now I'm going to write this story. Where does the inspiration normally come from?
I think a lot of writers end up working off of place by accident. For me, not so much. Like, it usually is like a character or situation that occurs to me, or like a conversation I have, an interaction I have with another person. It always kind of starts psychologically and sort of interpersonally for me. That's where my ideas come from, I think. But then, like, one of the first questions I ask myself is, if to find out what kind of story this is, I have to find out where it takes place. And definitely that was an early question for this book, because it had to be a part of the world where it made sense, and then also one that, like, the atmosphere would sort of serve the story, like the creepiness of what I was talking about.
Yeah, because we've been on hikes where we would stop and go, this is a really good place for a murder. And then you creep out for the rest of the hike. I mean,
you creep yourself out.
You creep yourself out. One hike we went on, this bluebird kept flying ahead of us 4 or 5 feet, and then would rest until we got there, and we kept going, this is really odd. What's going on here? And I'm like, no, this bird is trying to tell us something. And then no, dude, we're just on a hike. And then we thought, no, somebody died here. We creeped ourselves out totally.
Yeah.
That is very spooky. That's a very, like, a Stephen King in particular type scenario, I think.
Yeah,
there's an idea there somewhere. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So now, when you get those thoughts, do you think, like, when you are getting these ideas, do you check in with yourself, like, how far do you go? How far is imagination versus reality? Like, do you have those thoughts?
Sure. Well, especially when it comes to a crime story, like, I think for me, I'm really wary of doing anything exploitative. Like, I would want someone who's had a crime like this happen in their past or in their life to be able to read my book and not be like, this is morally disgusting to me. So I definitely want to use reality to sort of build a situation that makes sense to the reader. But at that point, fiction comes in where I'm like actually building the characters and building the plot in terms of, I do like to take it away from true events at that point. Because also then that way, like I feel more in control of the whole scenario, and there's less of a chance that I'll fall into, you know, sort of exploiting the actual deaths of actual people.
Well, I think it also makes it more personable. Like when you read a book, or watch a film, you want to relate, even if it's a bad guy or a good guy. You want to feel like, okay, I accept that person as a person, be it a good person or bad person. And you have to be ready to accept it. When a person comes on screen or in a book that you can't relate to, then you kind of either put the book down and go somewhere else, or you're like, wow, this is not for me. That's your choice. You know, how the acceptance thing of, can I like relate to this person, stomach this person in some way, feel something like, okay, this is human or it's not. Unless you're reading sci-fi where everything's out to whatever, and then you're ready for anything.
But even in sci-fi, I find like the sci-fi writers I really like Ian M. Banks. Those people, even if they're aliens, they still have enough recognizable behaviors and impulses. Or else I'm not interested in the whole like world building and like hard science aspect of science fiction enough to keep going with a book that doesn't have strong characters.
Exactly.
Yeah. You have to have the characters, because that's your belief model, your belief system, and that's where you have a connection. That's your connection to a story, is the characters. What do you do in regards to research with this? And we'll get into your other book in a couple seconds here. But what is it for you, and how do you do your research, and how do you hone your craft? I mean, have you?
That's a good one too. The research actually came. I don't know. I'm not the least lazy person, so a lot of this research is accidental. I've just been reading true crime forever, so I just knew a lot about investigation. I knew a lot about serial killers. I knew, and also just through reading fiction, I knew the territory that had already been explored by other writers. So I'd say almost all of my research took place accidentally before I started writing this book. And then afterwards, I did a few fact checks on like investigation. Is this realistic enough? I didn't need like every aspect of police investigation to be 100% accurate. It just needed to be pretty believable. And then as for my craft stuff, I didn't get a writing degree. I went to school for English literature, but I guess I'm self-taught. Like I read a lot, and I wrote a ton of short stories, and eventually they stopped being terrible. And I started publishing in literary journals here and there. And I just learned a lot from showing stuff to writer friends, from the rejections I got for manuscripts from journals or agents. And I just sort of, I think it took longer than it might have if I'd gotten an MFA. Like I got published at 34 instead of 26, but I don't know. I'm pleased that I did it this way. It would have been nice not to have been broke for quite as long, but I like where I've ended up, I guess.
Yeah, passion and purpose and profit, those three P's don't always get along together.
I would say we're here to you because I love school. I think everybody should go to school, be educated as far as you can afford to be educated. But there's nothing like real experience, and travel and things that going into neighborhoods that you haven't been to, go eat at food you never ate before, to really educate yourself. Hands-on education.
Yeah,
I like
that. And short stories, to me, that is, because we run two magazines, and it's like, how do you get things even though we're digital, there's still a limit of how many pages you can do, right? And it's like how Twitter was a good lesson for people of how to put things into 140 characters. Now we get 260 or 280, whatever. But it was this lesson of get to the point. And there's something to that. And I think that social media in a way took some creativity out, but also put a whole bunch of creativity into the bucket of how to do that. And I think short stories and writing that, because it's you got to capture them now, and it's the same thing in a book. A book's harder, but it's a really good ground of that. That's a good trial place, man.
You're forced to build these skills in very limited confines, and you can't waste details. You have to decide why am I using the sentence? Does it need to be here? It makes you better at writing anything, I think.
It's that get to the point. It's like the Hemingway, the iceberg theory of his,
It's the kill the baby.
Yeah, kill the babies.
Yeah.
Kill the babies.
So
you really
horrible.
want to put this in there, but sorry, the baby has to go. Sorry, Titanic's taking it down. Sorry, it's horrible. But okay, so let's talk about your other book, Curry, Eating, Reading, and Race. Okay, so now you got a different name. So tell everybody about this.
Oh yeah, you couldn't get more different as a book. Although a lot of what that book deals with is becoming the kind of writer that I wanted to be, which is a writer who writes about anything he wants to. And I sort of wrote it as a combination food/travel/memoir book, because I figured that was way more interesting than just writing a straight up literary criticism book. Sort of my point in it was, I think that a lot of brown writers, writers of South Asian origin in the UK and America and in Canada, they're kind of expected by the industry and maybe by readers to keep on writing this one certain kind of book, which I kind of sarcastically call a curry book in my book, where it's I think you're gonna know what I mean when I start describing it. Often it's about a second generation brown teenager who can't get along with his parents, and who's looking for some sense of connection with the past, and goes on a trip to the old country so he can sort of understand how to communicate with his parents. There's often a sari on the cover, or some scattered silk and spices, and there's a lot of truth to those stories, and a lot of those books are pretty good. But basically, my through line in the book is there's a lot of different stories to be told by a lot of different brown writers in the West. And that includes stuff I'm not a white .com millionaire like Martin Rees, but I got an idea for a story that is about one. And I think I did justice to those characters just through being the person I am and doing the research I did.
I love this because we have this whole generation of actors, comedians, especially standing up and saying, stop it. We're actually human beings with our own life, and I think, yes, we have our history, if I had to go on half of my family history, nobody, screw that, man. No. You can't do that.
But can I just say, this is so funny how the world will accept every shade of every color in a flower and make a big business out of shipping bulbs here and there and buying flowers, planting them here with flowers. When it comes to people, they have a problem.
Right.
I have never, ever understood that. And I go with plant a flower, leave it be, let it grow, and enjoy.
Yeah, let it tell its own story, man.
Yeah.
And even when it's not just outright racism, which often I haven't run into a ton of that in my life, frankly, but just the idea that you're being categorized and expected to be a certain kind of person, eventually that becomes irritating. That's what
exactly. No, well, we know as women, right? And
of course,
you were supposed to be this way and everything, but I totally understand.
Is that a male flower or a female flower?
Well, it depends on the stamen. I don't know. Anyhow, I just want to say, growing up in Kenya and in South Africa for most of my life as a kid, and then parts of in England for a little bit, I experienced a whole different side of Indian culture than what you experience here in the States. and North America, let's put it that way. I've not been to Canada in my adulthood, so I cannot say anything, but I can't wait to get there. You have Banff and all that.
That's actually, that speaks directly to something I talk about in the book, because my family's actually from Mauritius, so not so far from where we grew up.
Yeah, we go holiday there when we were in South Africa. That's the Mauritius is the place.
So despite the way that I look, nobody in my immediate family has been to India. Like I'm not Indian, even though like blood-wise, sure I am. But but it's so odd to be considered part of a large category, which in fact is a ton of different tiny categories. Like the brown people you met in Kenya and grew up around are different.
Yeah.
I should also add here, like that book that I wrote is meant to be like, it's pretty funny and light, and it goes into this, but it's not like a big lecture.
I want to read it. I'm like into this. It's cool.
Good. Great.
No, because I think it's so important, because like, when people spout off on things now, like I watch the news and everybody's got all their opinions. And I'm like, well, I grew up, I know Hindu, Muslim, all kinds of different, brown shades, white shades, pinky, fuzzy face shades. I have it all. Like all my friends and growing up in different countries, and like I could stand up and say, well, that's really not how they think this way. Like if you actually really know somebody, and it's also about knowing somebody individually, because you could have a friend who's whatever color, shade, fuzzy, non-fuzzy face, and they could totally go against what your belief is. And you're like, oh, dude, I thought you would only like this. It's like, excuse me, black people are not supposed to like Donald Trump. Well, that's not true. There's a lot of black people who like Donald Trump, so,
it has happened.
That's the way it is.
Yeah.
I don't want to say anything politically on that, but I'm just saying that it's about knowing the individual and stop it. And there's cultural things, but people have moved around this world for years. They've moved.
Sure. And culture and movement and diaspora, all that stuff informs who an individual is, but it doesn't tell you everything about that individual or the stories they have to tell.
But you do make me want to eat curry now, because your book is called, I really miss a good curry.
It's great.
And a good samosa.
I have to say, this is why books and interviews are so important, because what you think is true, you read something, you go investigate a little bit, you may come away with a different point of view. That sounds like a song, but
but it's true. Yeah,
rock it.
It's true, and I think everybody should look for a different point of view, just to make sure their point of view is the one they want.
Yeah, just check in. And something new is always
agreed.
Good. Okay, I have to ask you, how do you pronounce samosa? Because over here, people are saying they're saying all these different things. Samosa is how we said in South Africa and Kenya. What do you say?
I say samosa, but
really,
my
that's
parents,
what everyone's doing over here. That's interesting to me.
In my parents' accent, they would say samosa. So
oh, okay.
See, we got the real deal.
But
like. Mauritius is one of those weird islands where they have like French and English, so I wouldn't necessarily take the gospel from there either. But
well,
however you say it, it's delicious.
So weird. I go like, I want a samosa, and then it's different. And then every area, like you could have a burrito from here or there in Mexico. It's going to change.
Yeah.
They don't even have burritos in Mexico, really, when you get south of the border.
Well, not burritos like the States.
Tacos will be different. Soft tacos, hard tacos, all these different things. And samosas, like. I would do anything for the samosas I had from the street corner cafe in South Africa where we lived in Port Elizabeth. I would do anything for those just really deep fried, greasy goodness, man. Oh,
I bet. I'm hungry for one too now.
All right. So have you been to Mauritius?
Only once when I was 9. As just a little kid. So I got to go back at some point. Yes.
Yeah, and go see
it's an expensive plane ticket
that Martin Rees is like digging up.
Yes.
Can I ask you one thing about Martin Rees, because I don't think Nancy told me this, and I want to know. So, did he have the room with all the photos on the wall of the people he was digging up?
Oh no, he does. He has like the original title of this book was Scrapbook, because he, instead of taking souvenirs or anything like that, he catalogs everything he does, like on his digs, in digital photos, and then hides them in this like old beat up laptop computer that that his family just thinks is just a broken down old computer in his desk. But no, that's what he sacrifices for being a family man. Like, you can't have a teenage daughter and then have this room full of like these weird pictures and not expect her to ask you a million questions.
But he could have and should have been an archaeologist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Every archaeologist is going to go.
A paleontologist.
Yeah.
Sure.
No.
What are you doing digging up dead bones? Like, what's the difference?
That's what he was doing.
Uh-oh.
They're just a little more recent than.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But as you said too, he might have also made a good cop if he'd been just a little different. Yeah.
There's that little, but you see, you put that little thing in there that that little balance.
I thought he was a little
Everybody has
to that.
Everybody has to read the book.
Yeah.
So everybody, the website naben-ruthnum, and the book is Find You in the Dark. Because that's what happens.
My question to anybody who reads it is: would you elect this person to Congress?
Oh, nice, nice. She had to go in the political. Are you going to have book clubs with us? Because to me, this discussion on
a really good question.
I would like to have a book club where people discuss who's being, dug up at the time.
I would
the
love
body
it
of the
if
day.
book club sees onto this. Yeah, I think it's it's one of these books where, just like from the general public opinion I've gotten, even the people who don't like it have a lot to say and argue about it, because mainly it's because they're really uncomfortable with the character. Like, I feel like there's so much to discuss in this book, whether you like it or if it's not your kind of thing. So yeah, I hope it does become a book club pick. Of course.
I think so, because
I think it would make a great TV series.
I want people to discuss the body of the day. Like,
Yes.
No, but there's a
the dig of the day. Excuse me. No, dig of the day. It's like a rock hound, but it's a bone hound.
There's a side of this that I see where if it was a TV series, like, it could be centered on a real person who died. Kind of gross, but just to say, the closing of a person who tried to find where that grave was and give closure to the family. Okay, so it would be kind of a weird thing, but it could really work.
Yeah, actually, that would be. I think that's like a different spin on like the base idea, and that would totally work as a weekly series. I think. Yeah. I like that.
Oh, wow.
It's nicer though. I think you'd have to have like a less weird main character for that, and just have it be about someone who really does want to put things right and isn't.
Yeah. No,
okay.
I like the weird guy doing it.
So do you have more coming? More crime fiction coming?
Yeah, I should have a book out next year. I'm just writing it now, and we'll see how much my editor likes it once I'm all done.
Okay. Do you listen to music when you write?
Yeah, I do. Mostly stuff without lyrics, or I listen to a lot of soundtrack music and ambient music, and sometimes heavy metal when I'm writing. Just because I find that anything with lyrics that I can hear or make out ends up sort of interfering.
Yeah,
so it has to be either just really noisy or really backgroundish. Yeah.
I knew you'd listen to music. I had a feeling. That's cool, man.
Well, thank you for joining us. It has been a total pleasure. It's been a fun conversation for sure. It's been different. Let's put it that way. Let's dig up some bodies now. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
No, really, no. I can't wait to dig into. Dig into your.
Oh
book.
no.
Yes. Everybody, find you in the dark. Dig it, man. Go to nathan-ripley.com, and then your other book is Curry, Eating, Reading, and Race. And now that is under your real name, right? So
yeah, which is
naben-ruthnum. Say it.
Yeah, that's naben-ruthnum. And as for the book, my website is so bad that you're better off just Googling Nathan Ripley, Find You in the Dark, and finding your way to the book that way.
It'll get on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of it. It's all going to be out there, so check it out. And we want to thank our listeners for joining us, as always, on our shows. We air live here on Monday through Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Fridays and Sundays, 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can go to bigblendradio.com to check out the schedule of when our episodes go live. And for more author interviews, such as Nathan, go to blendradioandtv.com and check out our book department. You'll see Nathan there too. And we've got a song for you, Nathan. We like to dedicate a song to every guest on our show. And this one is called Obsessive Mind. What do you think?
Perfect. I'm in.
I thought it was a good title. And this is from a band called Gunboat Diplomat. This is off of their album, Fine State of Affairs. It's really sarcastically cool. And everyone enjoy this because she's obsessed. And so, you never know what can happen with that obsession. You could be digging up bodies too. Gunboatdiplomats.com, but everyone, again, go to nathan-ripley.com or just go to Google and Find You in the Dark. Thanks so much for joining us, Nathan.
Thanks so much. It was a great chat.
You take care.
You
Everybody,
too.
here it is, Obsessive Love.
I'm loving you, but you don't even know that I exist, as if you'd care. I'm shoving to one side of your conclusions that I might have missed, but I don't dare. And though it could spell the end of me, some things were just meant to be. I'm watching you from deep within the shadows of my mind, and sloshing through a cruel morass of feelings that I never hoped to find. Never hoped to find. I'm meeting you, my dear elusive, beautiful obsession, and I'm afraid I'm bleeding through a vein below of painful true confession, but it's too late. Your looking glass lies to erase reflections I can't bear to face. I'm walking through a twilight dream where lonely torches burn, and talking to strange voices who will whisper to me that there's no return. A point of no return. Sweet passion has taken its toll. Desire has poisoned my soul. As dying light surrenders to the darkness like a friend, the crying night will soon recite a sacred rite that binds us till the end. Till